Welcome to the Betty Rocker Show, the place to be to nourish your mind, love your body, and rock your life. What's up, Rockstar? Coach Betty Rocker here. Thank you so much for joining me. Okay, so I want to talk today about body composition and how it's different than just weighing yourself on the scale. So I find that scale weight can be problematic for a lot of us because of the way we associate value with the number that we see. And sometimes we're kind of comparing the number of how much we weigh to a previous time in our life when we weighed something specific that we thought was a good weight for ourselves because we liked how we looked. That's totally natural. However, if we didn't at the time have the data or the details of what went into that weight, we can't really make an accurate comparison to now because there's so much that goes into that number. For example, how much you weigh has to do with how much water is currently in your body, your bone density, your bone mass, your muscle mass, your body fat mass. And these numbers can all change over time. When you're a younger person, you may not be fully developed yet. You may also be carrying less muscle tissue or less body fat. It really can vary. And so if you don't have that detailed information about when you were that other weight that you liked, you really can't compare yourself now just because your weight is different. You might have very different numbers for very different reasons when you look at your actual body composition. So your body composition is not the same as your weight on the scale. Let's talk a little bit about muscle and fat and how they take up space in the body. So if we had 5 pounds of muscle sitting here right now and 5 pounds of fat, they'd both weigh 5 pounds on the scale. The scale would even out. But your fat is going to take up a lot more space than your muscle. Muscle is more dense, more compact than fat. It's also an amazing organ in our body that supports our joints. It makes us strong. It secretes hormones. It does all these really cool things. Our body fat is also important. It has a lot of important purposes in our body. It surrounds and supports our organs. It creates, it helps us thermoregulate and stay warm when we're cold. There's a lot of important functions that our fat serves as well, but the ratio of muscle to fat that you have is a big part of how much you weigh. And if you don't know how much fat you have versus how much muscle you have, and you're not measuring that over time, it's impossible to really tell if you're progressing with a program. If you are only looking at your weight on the scale every day, and that number jumps up, and then it jumps down, and then it jumps up again, you may be constantly thinking to yourself, the program that I'm doing isn't working. It's not good enough. I'm not doing enough. So I need to eat less and work out more because that's probably going to help me lose more body fat. That's not necessarily going to help you lose more body fat. And if you're not even measuring your body fat, then how do you even know if you're actually losing more body fat? You know, it might be that you are actually building muscle. And because that muscle is more compact and more dense, your scale weight may not be going down as much as you think it should. And I really just feel like I want you to understand that your weight alone is not the only thing that's going to tell you about your progress. This is why in a lot of my programs, I suggest you use observation by taking pictures of yourself periodically through the course of a program, because when you see yourself day to day, you're not going to see any changes. However, if you take a picture of yourself full length, front, back, and side, wearing the same thing each time, you will see if your body is changing or not. And you'll be able to gauge the effectiveness of the actions that you're taking. And, you know, it's not just your workouts that are going to help you lose body fat, right? It's the things that we surround our workouts with in the form of, what are we eating? Are we eating the right nutrients? Are we going to bed on time? Are we taking advantage of the sleep cycles and getting that deep restorative sleep and rest? Are we managing our stress so that cortisol isn't constantly running rampant through our system, breaking down our muscle tissue and making us store more body fat? They're really important factors that go into burning body fat and building muscle. And sometimes these things don't happen at the same time. Sometimes one happens more and the other happens less. It really depends on how you are able to apply these 4 pillars of health, as I call them: sleep, nutrition, stress management, and exercise, to yourself consistently over time to create that state in your body for your desired outcome to happen. So again, back to your weight on the scale. I just want you to take a step back from those daily weigh-ins and really consider how you can get a true gauge of how your body is progressing and how your body is responding to the stimuluses that you're giving it, whether it's a workout or whether it's your eating plan. And one thing that you can do is get a smart scale. Smart scales have a varying amount of accuracy, but they're a lot more useful for us in thinking about our body composition than just the number on the scale alone. So a smart scale can be a helpful tool. There are some professional ways to measure your body composition, like the DEXA scan, which DEXA stands for dual X-ray absorptiometry. There's the BOD pod, which is something that works with air displacement. You can find those in certain gyms or training facilities. There's the in-body scan, where you stand and you hold these paddles in your hands. There are 3D body scanners and other types of professional body composition measuring tests that are all effective, but you do need to probably go to a place and pay for those to be done. However, if you do those maybe like annually, that can be a great indicator of, are you holding on to muscle mass as you age, or are you losing it? And there are some ways that you can rectify that. If you are, for instance, losing muscle over time, you can definitely start applying different strategies to help prevent that. But I think it's helpful to get those types of snapshots from the big picture perspective, but day to day or even week to week, using maybe a smart scale to take a look at your progress within those metrics a little more closely if you do want to weigh yourself more frequently. And then if you would like to maybe take a step back from that and simply go more by how your clothes are fitting, or how your body looks across time, maybe every 10 days, that's where you're taking progress pictures and really noticing how your body looks over time from a bigger picture perspective. So you're not up so close to it and being so hard on yourself day to day. And so I think that can be really, really helpful. I think another thing to really remember and keep in mind is, even when you're applying all 4 pillars of health in an optimal way, we have to adjust our expectations to how quickly the body is going to respond to these strategies and these methods of shifting our body composition. It takes time to build muscle. You have to really be consistent with all of these things together to build muscle. It takes time to lose body fat. When you think about how long it takes to gain body fat, it might feel like it comes on so fast, but really we had to do certain things over and over and over to gain the body fat. So we have to do other things over and over and over to lose it. And it is a process. We have to adjust our expectations and really be patient with the process and be kind to ourselves in the process. And this is what really bothers me about the weigh-ins and the value that we're putting on ourselves based on how much we weigh. I feel like we're really so hard on ourselves for not weighing light enough or not being small enough. And that in itself is a whole other conversation for women of like, why do we constantly need to be smaller? Let's take up some damn space, right? But I understand, like, when there's a health concern and you're wanting to get stronger and add more muscle to your body, and you're trying to be healthier in general, and you know that should help you lose body fat, and you should be able to put on more muscle as a result of your actions, and you want to see that progress over time. Well, that's great, but you're not going to learn that from looking at how much you weigh on a scale. So I hope that this little quick conversation has been helpful. There is follow-up reading for you over on thebettyrocker.com in the women's health section. If you're interested, there's a great article called The Truth About Your Weight, which I recommend you read. And there's some other follow-up material as well. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful, like I said, and I just want you to stop being quite so hard on yourself for how much you weigh, and remember that's really an arbitrary number. Let me know what came up for you in this conversation by leaving me a comment on social media or dropping me a line. I always love hearing from you, and I appreciate the opportunity to have conversations with you. So thanks for being part of my community. As always, I'm Betty Rocker, and you are so awesome, blossom, and amazing. I look forward to talking to you again real soon. Bye for now.
This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Brie Argetsinger, Betty Rocker Inc., and the producers disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. Before starting a new exercise, fitness, or health protocol, or if you think you have a medical problem, always consult a licensed physician.